One. Hello there and welcome. We are Geeks Assembled, and we have assembled here today to talk about Terror of the Zygons. Yes, a Tom Baker Doctor Who classic. And we're going to stick with the new format, as I'm going to ask everybody here what their favourite characters and moments are. So let's open up the floor and discuss what your favourite moments and characters are. Who wants to go first?
Well, here we go. I'll go first then. Goes without saying, favourite characters is the TARDIS team of the day. Harry, Sarah, the Doctor, one of the best teams in the show history, in my opinion. Also, you get the unit family. Brigadier, Sergeant Benton. They're good characters. You've got a good story when you've got the unit, the classic unit there. For me, they're the favourites. I mean, you've got the guest stars as well, haven't you? The Angus Lenny as the innkeeper. Oh, people of my age and sort of Beef Dad's age would mostly remember him as Shuey McPhee in Crossroads. That's my favourite characters in this story. So,
yeah, I have to agree. I mean, this TARDIS team is amazing. They just gel so well together. I mean, Elizabeth Sladen, then you've got Harry, who wasn't in that many episodes, sadly. What was he only in?
Well, this
one
was
season. Yeah.
It was his very last one. This one, wasn't it? So.
No, he appeared in one more, didn't he?
Yeah. His last one is a regular.
Yeah, he appeared in Android Invasion.
Yes,
he come back and do later one. Yeah.
But he's an amazing character. He really is. What about Connor or Susan?
I think my favourite character overall, as everyone else has said, is the TARDIS team. This is one of the. It's got a great cast, got a great villain in the Zygons. If you can class them as characters, I'd say that the Zygons are absolute standout villains as well. They really do go down in Doctor history as some of the best. But yeah, it's really, this is one where the TARDIS team are sort of the one that give the extra oomph to the story. You've as I said, you've got a great guest cast. You've got the mayor and all those sorts of characters, but it really just focuses around the TARDIS team, to be honest.
You got the Brigadier in a kilt.
Yeah, and the Brigadier, obviously, and Benton are two also great characters. It's really just sort of them that really shine out. But it is a really great story overall, I think, anyway.
What about Beef Dad? Favourite characters?
Yeah, well, obviously you've got the TARDIS team. This was the last of the Brigadier's regular appearances. He guest appeared from here on in. I got a very strange noise coming on my computer.
Yeah.
Ian Marter as Harry Sullivan wasn't too bad. There have been worse. John Woodnutt playing the Duke of Fothergill was brilliant. The Duke of Fothergill, absolutely superb. And he turned up in lots and lots of different episodes of Doctor Who. Bless him. But the one thing that obviously nobody's mentioned was the Zygons. This was their original appearance. And they're superbly conceived. They're brilliantly done. And they are creepy as hell. And to be perfectly honest, they are a lot more creepy and villainous than the Zygons of the, well, what can I say, of the recent era. They just don't seem to have got the Zygons. The Zygons were nasty, small-minded little things, really. With ambitions above and beyond their capabilities. And I think they're just brilliantly conceived, and they were brilliantly put over in this.
I think to link in with the Zygons, as Beef Dad said, the Scarazon is a big, to compare to two things that I think are relatively similar. The dinosaurs in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and later on, God forbid, the Merca in...
You had to bring that up.
Yeah, this is a true sort of prehistoric dinosaur, massive scale monster that really suits the story. I absolutely love the Scarazon. It's a shame that they haven't brought it back in the other Zygon stories.
But what about favourite characters? Let's just wind it back a minute. Susan, who are your favourite characters, Susan? I see you wrote a lot of notes there, Susan. Flipping heck.
I've got a notebook. Well, first of all, I love the beginning shots of Sarah and Harry wearing the doctor's kit. Sarah was in the doctor's hat, and Harry was wearing his scarf, and they were wandering down from where they landed the TARDIS somewhere in the woods, and they were trying to find a road to connect. And apparently, there was a little blurb at the beginning where the doctor is sitting in a theater and suddenly gets like a text message from the doctor from the Brigadier saying, could you come help? And he runs out of the theater, runs up the stairs, and runs into the TARDIS and says, I'll be back next Saturday. So, I mean, here he is in his full kit, and then he gives his kit to Sarah and to Harry, and it was just adorable. And then the next adorable thing about Terror of the Zygons was the Brigadier in a kilt. I mean, he was in the military garb of the Scottish of what's it called, the first Scottish Brigade or whatever, and then without the hat and without the piping on the shoulders is all. And so, I mean, he looked really cool in that. And
did you have your bucket and mop ready?
Yeah,
mop and bucket.
It was rather drooly, it's true. Yeah. So, and then the pipes. I mean, the laird of the land blowing his bagpipes. I mean, talk about really establishing Scotland in your heart. I mean, it was really beautiful. And then there was the Loch Ness Monster, the Saracen. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, the Brigadier and Benton striking this pose and looking ever. When I heard that he was back in Big Finish, I was like, yes. Because he really had some amazing points in his, unit days. So, welcome back, Benton. Them, and I love the Laird, and I love the.
You love all of them, Susan. You love all of them.
I think one moment that hasn't been mentioned in there's an extended bit.
She's just holding it. She's gonna explode any moment.
God damn. There's an extended bit where they materialise, and for the first time, and I think the only time, the TARDIS materialises invisibly, so you can't actually see the TARDIS. It's a groundbreaking. I think it's the only time it's ever happened. Is it not? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I probably am
wrong.
It happened in a Troughton one, if I remember rightly.
That's right.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so it was the second time or whatever that happened, and it is a great moment. It's a nice twist on the TARDIS.
Second time doesn't sound as good, does it, Connor?
It does not.
No. But who's Alex's favourite characters? Who's your favourite characters in this, Alex?
Well, yes. I mean, I agree with Beef Dad that even though I there's a lot I don't like about the story in terms of the direction of the pacing, I can understand why they did it, and for its time, it was very unique. It is nice for the Brigadier to talk a little bit about himself as opposed to just barking orders. John Woodnut is a very good actor, and I knew that from the first time I saw him in many different other things. And what else? And it is a good TARDIS team, so to speak. I wouldn't put it that way, but that's fine. And it is nice that they were able to do the Loch Ness Monster, so it's a little bit more germane to the country. And I also did enjoy the Zygons, and I agree with Beef Dad that they've sort of, just like with the Centaurans, they sort of took out the menace, and I don't like that. I wanted them to be, that's the thing I like about the classic Doctor Who, that era, was that they came up with many different villains, and they didn't use them constantly, and they were menacing, they were evil, they're supposed to be, that's who he's fighting against. So the Zygons were very good. The Centaurans, all that's not in this story, but that's one of the things I actually enjoyed about that was John Woodnut, and then he transforms into a Zygon, and that's basically what I remember, and that's basically why I want to watch the story, is for those two key elements.
What about standout moments? What is there a standout moment for anyone? What's your standout moment of this episode?
Oh, the Zygon, when Sarah's on the phone and she turns around and it just lurches at her.
The cliffhanger.
That cliffhanger, that is wow. I mean, it is pulled off with some mass effect, and it just works so well.
It's one of the best cliffhangers. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's up there. I mean, you don't often get cliffhangers like that, and we had to wait another week to find out if Sarah survived. Well, yeah, that's one standout moment. I mean, also it said the Zygons, the character, she was creepy anyway. She was creepy as the nurse and creepy as the Zygon. But standout. It's just and Harry with the pitchfork.
I was just going to say that.
With what they got, the Zygon Harry. I mean, so menacing in that lot, and then skewers himself on the stuff down below.
And to think how scary that is, he's going to kill Sarah Jane, and then he falls off, and he's just lying on the floor, dead.
Before that, he was totally Lurky McLurkerson. He was everywhere, lurking around, shifty eyes. It's amazing.
But for me, you don't get that sort of suspense, cliffhangery type suspense in the new format. I think that's what is lacking in the writing of the new series these days.
Does Beef Dad have a standout moment in this episode? You muted, Beef Dad.
Well, of course I am. I always do that. I remember watching this when it came out. I mean, Dad, I think Lee was only about 5. It was
55.
It was 1975, and for me, the magical thing of it was that the actual Zygon ship, if you looked at it, it looked metal and very much like you would expect. But the interior was, they looked like mushrooms. The controls and everything looked like mushrooms. They were living things. So basically, it told you that not only was the Loch Ness Monster a cyborg, but it would appear that the ship was as well, because it was part metal, part living matter. An extraordinary concept, which had never really occurred to anybody before then. as I say, the first time you see the Zygons in this is the standout moment, because they are creepy as hell, pretty damn scary, and I remember, let's see, 75, I was what, 17, going to work, talking to guys at work about it, and they couldn't believe how creepy the new monsters were on Doctor Who. And as I say, my big problem is that they have got rid of that now. They're almost reasonable now, and that's wrong. That doesn't work with Zygons. Zygons were desperate. There are loads more on their way, and the whole business of the Zygons has been watered down really, really badly.
Yeah.
I think that it's a case of are they too scared to scare the viewers anymore? Because at that time, they innovated with the Daleks. You got the Zygons.
The Sontarans, but that was a different story.
And they watered everything down.
Yeah.
Everything seems to have been watered down recently.
Yeah.
Which I find a bit of a shame.
Well, we'll get on to comparing them.
Yeah.
As Lee says, the cliffhangers, they're just not there anymore.
Yeah.
But then they are doing a story per week. There might be a sort of slight cliffhanger if they're doing a two-parter, but it won't be anything massive. But at that time, they were doing stories with cliffhangers to make you watch the next week.
Right.
And that, sadly, is something that they have lost with the new format.
Does Susan have a standout moment in this episode?
I like, as Beef Dad said, I love the organic, slimy, squishy ship interiors. I love the Zygons being slimy, squishy, organic, and looking like they're. I love the bit where the Doctor says, "You can't rule you can't rule the universe in hiding. You have to come out and, if you pardon my expression, wave a tentacle." That was really, really cute. Oh my gosh, it was so fun. Then there was the double entendre line at the end of the whole thing. Was that big enough for you, Brigadier? I mean, wow. Yeah, so anyway, that was pretty fun. And I loved the buried spaceships. I mean, they must have buried spaceships and bases all over the UK. So any seismic, mapping of the United Kingdom must show spaceship, Silurian base, spaceship, Silurian base, something else, Sea Devil base, underwater science fiction structure, just all over. I mean, you guys must have it everywhere.
Oh, we do.
That's what I thought. And there are so many of them. And then...
Not in Connor's area.
Oh, okay.
I knew he was going to say that. I absolutely knew it. I just know his humour.
And then it's funny. We all could get to know each other that well. And then,
we know each other very well, Susan.
When anybody was face to face with the Zygon, it was really freaky. It wasn't oh my gosh, this one could be my double and could be really cool. This one was just freaky. Yeah, those were my big moments in this.
What about Alex? What's your favorite moments,
Well,
Alex?
I mean,
Your favorite moment?
Susan, like I said, Susan and Beef Dad have brought it up about the Zygons, about John Woodnut, and of course, don't forget the ever popular and deserves to be Tom Baker, who somehow can deliver a line like nobody else can. I mean, he can smile and and say the nasty thing, but say it with a smile. I mean, he has such. I've even shown it to non-fans, and they say, "Wow, this Tom Baker has such personality." So even if they're not a fan of the writing, even if they think the cliffhanger is silly, they still kind of respect it. And I know a lot of people that, as I've always said, they may hate British television or claim they do, but they love Tom Baker. I mean, they just love his charisma, his charm, the way he delivers his lines. I mean, it's really superb. And there's other doctors too that all the doctors have their charisma and their charm and their times when they have their speech and all that. And that's part of the charm of Doctor Who and the BBC, is that they can find actors that know how to deliver their lines, how to have personality and charm. And like I said, I bumped into so many people. They just love Tom Baker's performance as the Doctor. They just love it. They may dislike everything else, but but they love his performance.
All right. So no favorite moments during the episode. All right. I have to say one of my favorite moments is actually the ending. I actually like the ending. What about Connor? What favorite moments does Connor have?
I've got to jump on the bandwagon and say that the ship is my absolute favorite bit. Just the organic look of it. And it's nice to see that we finally know what the hybrid of Series 9 is, because that is an interesting point that Beef Dad brought up. I think that's definitely what Stephen Moffat was writing the storyline about, that spaceship. So expect to see it in Series 10 for his final series. Other than that, he might not be the best Doctor. In fact, he might be the worst. But Tom Baker is a great actor. The way he delivers his lines is just wonderful. As I said, he might not be the best, but at least he's got a bit of character. So yeah, I'll say all the bits with Tom Baker in this particular one are my favourites as well.
And now let's talk about the Zygons. Yeah, because I think the Zygons are just fantastic. They look great. They're menacing. And you know what? In this story, I feel worried for the Doctor, and I feel worried for Sarah Jane. There is a threat there. The Zygons feel threatening. So let's talk about the Zygons a bit. How do we think they are as villains, and how do they compare to how they are now? Other Zygon stories.
I like the fact that they are sort of like calamari, and if you've ever threatened your brother or sister with eating squid or octopus before they're ready, before they know that it's really good, deep fried like an Italian, you threaten them with a little bit of that, and they go, ah! That's the way a Zygon is. They're like, ah! So, yeah, very freaky, very fun.
Me personally think that in 1975, for the design of the Zygons and that costume is so damn good. It's so creepy. It looks so organic. They really did pull that off, and to add the voice as a whisper, it's just so creepy. And me personally, I think the modern day Zygons haven't got that creepiness about. They don't look at the design's similar, but it doesn't look as threatening or as organic as the original Zygons did. So for me, it's always the 1975 version. That costume just gives me the willies.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And Lee likes that. What does
No, I
Connor
mean,
have to say? Put yourself to Connor. Pull yourself to Connor. Pull yourself together, Connor.
Okay, I have to say that it's nice to have a monster in Doctor Who that reminds me of Alid, first and foremost.
the heck?
But yeah, the Zygons, as I said at the beginning of the review, they go down in Doctor Who history as some of the best. You know, I actually like the Series 9 two-parter. The outfits don't really bother me, but that is a damn good story, and it does get a lot of praise, but it also gets a lot of animosity towards it.
Because Unit were terrible in that. Those Unit soldiers, you know the one I'm on about with the church.
Yeah, well, you know, we won't go into that particular scene, but the speech in the Zygon inversion, my God, who could deliver that better than that Scott we know as Peter Capaldi? Who could? No, I don't think anyone could. It made the series for me. That I'm glad that it came in a episode where it was the Zygons, where it was a returning villain. I think that's just a damn good two-parter. Actually, I don't think they've butchered these Zygons too much. I agree that there are certain aspects of it that are probably a bit off. Day of the Doctor, their appearance was a bit of and it was, it was just felt like a throwaway sort of thing, and it set up the storyline for the two-parter. But for real Zygon stories, that two-parter I think is a well done sequel to this, I'll say.
But do you think this is the best Zygon story?
Yeah,
because I would say I personally think it is. I don't think they were any cop in Day of the Doctor. They weren't any good in Day of the Doctor, personally.
I think this is the absolute best Zygon thing, but because to sort of counteract the animosity that this Series 9 two-parter gets, I don't think it's that far off quality-wise, actually, as people may want you to believe, or as people may believe. I think it is it's a very well-written two-parter, and it flows really well. It feels massive because they go to different countries. There's like all different settings. It feels like a world invasion rather than just a invasion in a park and in a unit base and whatever locations were in the episode in Britain, especially. And one thing I liked about the two-parter is how they portrayed the transformation, because at the start of the second part, Clara Zygon transformed someone, and it was really, Beef Dad was saying about it being watered down. I agree, but for that particular scene, I thought that was very, very gory. It was quite shocking, actually, when I saw it. I thought that was well done, particularly.
But the thing that was really interesting about the Zygons and Terror of the Zygons was that they did start in another country, in another part of the United Kingdom, another huge region of Scotland, and then they invaded with the Loch Ness Monster all the way into London. So I mean, like it wasn't lacking in depth of a field, in that one. They did an amazing job bringing all that space into play.
Yeah.
The thing that I really liked is about the older Zygons is that they weren't attractive in any way. They were created to look sort of gross and sort of intimidating, and not the Zygons and Zygon in the later years and in the more recent years have been the figure, the outside of the figure was Zygon, but the face was an attractive face. I mean, it's like supposed to repel you and attract you at the same time. I mean, that's what that's.
Are you saying you find the Zygons attractive now?
No.
I think you are, Susan. I think you got to watch this one, Alex.
One more thing, and the juxtaposition of Kate and the Zygons and the Brigadier and the Zygons was not lost on me. It was a nice parallel. So go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, again, obviously we're talking about, even though we're talking about the same show and the same creations, we're talking about different decades, different budget, different producer. So obviously there's going to be changes. I wish they had kept it more the design of the original Zygons, because there was a little bit of the otherworldness of it, whereas the Zygons now, it looks more plastic. It doesn't look as body horror, when you see like fish or octopus or whatever, and you get that sensation of, ooh, that's slimy, or ooh, that's kind of, mucusy type of thing. And you don't really, I know they did that in Day of the Doctor where they were spewing stuff out of their mouth actually, but to me, that sort of was cheap. It's like a cheap effect. Whereas if you can see a monster in a horror movie or a sci-fi show, and you're getting repelled when you first see them, that's what you want to concentrate on, not a cheap gimmick of, oh, I'm going to spew something from my mouth or I'm going to foam at the mouth. Yes, it's a little gross, but it's not as gross as, something that, like with Android Invasion, the old classic type of, and the Autons as well. The old classic show had the charm of taking an ordinary thing and actually making you scared of it. You know what I mean? And that was part of the charm, and that was part of the reason why Doctor Who is so big, like with the maggots, with the Green Death, even though that's a different story. I bump into a lot of people that say, oh, God, that freaked me out. I'll remember that forever. You know what I mean? Whereas with the Zygons, even though they're good character, it's a good invention, they don't seem as scary and otherworldly and slimy and creepy as the originals. Even though I understand what Connor is saying about the Inversion and Invasion two-parter, and the Capaldi's speech was very good, and that's very good for sci-fi, and I know they had to update it and things like that. I still like the fact that the original creations and villains from Doctor Who were more scary. They were more antagonistic than the new show is doing, and it takes away a little bit from the charm and the statement. I know they want to do that so that they don't seem preachy or whatever, but I remember when I was watching Tom Baker's stories on black and white and color, and can you imagine trying to see the Centaurans in black and white? I mean, that's creepy. Trying to see the Zygons on black and white, it's even more creepy than color. You know what I mean? And it adds to sort of the off-kilter effect, and it's actually more effective.
Does Beef Dad have any more to add on what he thinks about the Zygons in this story, or in any other story, compared to this one?
Compared to this one, basically what they've done is they've humanized them. And that is the big problem. They have made them more like human beings than Zygons. You've lost an awful lot of the menace. So really speaking, as an adversary for the Doctor, they've gone down about 20 points out of 100. It's a real shame that they have watered down the Zygons like this. And as has been said, Yeah, the modern Zygons. Why can't they control the Loch Ness Monster anymore? There must be a reason, but the reason's never been explained. What a wonderful use of the Loch Ness Monster it would be to bring him back. Because
Too
we know,
expensive to cast.
no, not really.
He
No,
wants too much money.
no, they could get you to do it.
Yes.
Oh, meow.
But if you're going to water down something like that, it's almost pointless using them. In that case, find a new monster, make a new monster.
Connor.
Doctor Who's known for making new monsters, and the monsters have always been creepy. I mean, if you want to look at a new monster that has been made by, should we say, the more recent Doctor Who's, you only have to look at the Satan bit, and that is incredible. That was a really new, scary monster. Why water down one of the ones from the so-called classic era? I hate calling it that. It's just wrong. Just to water it down. Those were creepy. They worked. Why change something that works? That's been the big mistake. But as far as the terror of the Zygons is concerned, what an incredible job they did on this. It really was just so good.
I think, as Beef Dad said about creating new monsters, the thing that Doctor Who doesn't really do these days is create monsters with any longevity. In recent years, to name a few that have really stood out, I think in the general audience and the fan base, the Foretold in Series 8, Mummy on the Orient Express, the Boneless, which was the very next episode. You have the Veil last year in Heaven Sent. All those three really in recent years are ones that have really stood out. But you can't really bring them back. There's no real way of bringing them back.
They're one-off villains, aren't they? They're one-offs.
Without either repeating the same storyline or without it making no sense. So I think really to create a villain, they've really got to focus on the longevity of the villain rather than one-off. Because
can I suggest one that has had a longevity?
I know which one you're going to say.
The Silence.
I wouldn't say the Silence have got longevity. They're not even villains, are they? They're priests, aren't they?
No, they've got they're very eerie. They're very body horror. They're very menacing. My nephew saw the Silence and has not been allowed to watch Doctor Who since. And he saw it 3 years ago, and he's still not allowed to watch it because it scared the bejeebers out of him. So
but I
mean, literally, the Silence and we are going to review a unit story where they meet the Silence next Friday, a week from yesterday. So I just wanted to bring that to the table. Yeah. Plug that and also bring that to the table as a monster that actually scares the crap out of everybody these days.
But I think what Connor means is monsters that keep on coming back, like the Cybermen and the Daleks. Like, I don't see the Silence coming back after Moffat leaves. Is that what you mean, Connor? Like the Daleks and the Cybermen, they keep on coming back.
Yeah, Dalek Cybermen, Auton Silurians, Sontarans, Zygons, all those sort of monsters that have made repeat appearances and have continued to have the same impact. You don't get them anymore. the Foretold is a great villain, but it's not going to come back. Not in a million years. There's no way it can come back. Maybe in an audio, but even then, it can't be done without repeating the same storyline. It's a shame that they can't create a great villain that has that sort of longevity. They tried with the Toclafane in Series 3. That they were going to become the new Daleks. It didn't work out. No one really grabbed onto them as good villains, and we're probably not going to see them again. It's a real shame. That's another part of Doctor Who that's lost its memorable villains that can come back.
Well, no, I mean they come back, but the problem is they lose their menace. Like the Weeping Angels were very scary at first, but it seems like the more they come back, the less scary they become. So it's a problem of, can they get a villain that's both scary and menacing, but not come over as preachy or heavy-handed? And they seem to be having trouble with coming up with a villain that that is really grabbing people's attention. The Weeping Angels did the first 2 stories, and then it seems like it dropped off. It seems like it lost.
I think one of the biggest problems I have with the Russell T Davies era, and I prefer the Russell T Davies era to the Moffat era, but it's the fact that Russell T Davies never really created any major new villain. He never created a villain that would come back in Moffat's era and in Chibnall's era and in whoever's era after that and after that. The problem is he created monsters that were animals.
Yeah.
That they were cats. They're not villains, but he created aliens that were cats. He created aliens that were rhinos. He created aliens that were flies. The fly people in Planet of the Dead. He based them on real life animals, which I quite like, because you've got that familiarity about them.
Yeah.
But they haven't created something that I can't see will be used in another 50 years' time. That's the thing. The Daleks, Cybermen, Zygons, whatever, Autons, Sultarans, whatever, they'll be used in 50 years' time from now.
Well,
I don't think any new villain from this era will be used in 50 years from now.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Go ahead, Connor.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's exactly the point I was trying to make.
No, the Sublime, the ones from the Aliens of London, the 3-parter.
The Sublime will be
passing gas all the time, so they made it more comical.
Anyway, we're going off topic a little bit. Let's wind it back and let's go back to Terror of the Zygons. And I want to know, what are your weak points of this story? What are your weak points? The points where you think that wasn't so good.
Scarazon. Oh,
yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
It was bloody awful. It was. You go down the route of the maker with that. It's bloody awful. I mean, also it's contradicted by story Time Lash, because apparently the Borad becomes the Loch Ness monster. So,
I was going to mention that.
But the Scarazon for me was just the weakest part. Everything else in that story, I can't fault. The Scarazon, when that head pops up, you think they could have done a little. I know it was 1975, but I mean, look what they did with the Drashigs. The Drashigs worked. I mean, that to me, that was a hand puppet. Why couldn't they do something like that?
This was like something from Invasion of the Dinosaurs.
I don't know if they'd run out of money and that's what they got by the end of the day, and they didn't have enough time to rectify it. But for me, that was the weakest thing in the story.
Does anyone else have any weak parts of this story? What didn't you like about it?
I think the pacing at points is a bit off. It can get really slow. It can slow down, and then it gets a bit fast again. Then it slows down. Sometimes that doesn't really work for Doctor Who. It's not really that bad here because the story is genuinely very good and it's very gripping. It's a great script, but just the pacing just seems to be a bit off at times. I think that's the only weakness I can think of for the story overall.
Yeah, I mean the pacing is a little off, but again, remember too that that was episodic. It was a serial, and they had more day, more parts to it. Now they don't want to do it. They don't want to do more than a two-parter anyway. So it might have been a little tighter in terms of the pacing and the direction, but then would it have been as scary? Because sometimes you add more parts and it gets scarier. If they had tried to chop down some other stories I could mention, it might have taken away some of the menace. So I mean, again, it depends too on how many stories of the modern era are scary within an hour. That I think Blink is one of the few that people remember, but that's going a little bit off to the modern era. But
the thing that I didn't it just seemed like it wasn't dealt with really was when and they didn't have to do it. They didn't have to have Harry hitting Sarah. I mean, you knew that was the end of Harry because you don't hit Sarah Jane Smith ever with anything. I mean, Sarah Jane Smith is sacrosanct. And Harry,
Yeah, but that wasn't Harry, though, was it?
Imbecile. I know it wasn't him, but
Zygon.
But I mean, bad juju hitting Sarah Jane Smith.
It was Alid that possessed his body and went crazy. So blame Alid.
I'm not possessing anybody's body. Does Beef Dad have any weak points to this story? You muted, by the way, before we start talking.
For me, I think they could have used the Brigadier a bit more. I think he was basically underused in this serial. Yeah, that for me was the weak point, because I mean, considering it was the last time he was going to be part of the regular team, I wish they'd used him a bit more.
Yeah. And of course, this DVD came out in the 50th year.
Mm-hmm.
It was released in the 50th year for when the Zygons returned. So that was quite good that they held it back for then. But let's move on to final say and score. So let's go to Beef Dad. Let's go to Beef Dad for his final say and his score on this episode.
Final say, it was wonderful at the time to see a new villain. So brilliantly realised. It got everybody talking. It got everybody talking at the time. And, for a Saturday evening programme to do, it gets a 10.
A 10. And let's go to Alex for his final say and his score.
Yeah, I'd have to give it a 7. Like I said, John Woodnut, Tom Baker's lines also in the story, and the Zygons in the original form in the first appearance make the story memorable.
And let's go to Susan for your final say and score.
I'll give it a 9.5 because, I mean, it has, the awesome characters that it has in it, and the sort of spans that it covers, and just great stuff all around.
Yep, and Connor?
I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It came during the golden era of Doctor Who, in my personal opinion, the Hinchcliffe Holmes era. It's a golden nugget in a large part of Doctor Who greatness, and it's a great story to go back and rewatch when on a rainy day. It stands up against the rest of them. So yeah, 8 out of 10 from me.
And let's go to the new City of Culture with Lee.
Hello there.
Thought it was Ken Dodd then.
By Jove. What I've got to say is, my final say on this is the creation of the Zygons worked so well back then. The fans wanted them to come back, and when they finally did, they didn't live up to what Terror of the Zygons created. It's never been bettered in my eyes. With all the new Zygon stuff, this is the best and always will be. I'm not too keen on the Scarazans, so just for that, I'm giving it a 9.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 9 as well, because it's just a fantastic story, and it's the best Zygon story. But it isn't the best Doctor Who story. It's the best Zygon story, and it is in a golden era of Doctor Who. Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane's my favourite companion, and Tom Baker is one of the best Doctors ever. And for some people, he is the Doctor. You've got the Brigadier. I mean, come on, Susan. You got to love the Brigadier, haven't you? You really have. And look at that poster that Susan's got. Oh, that's the Sarah Jane Adventures, yeah. When the Brigadier appeared in that. Oh, fantastic. You've got to love those two. Anyway, yeah, I'm giving it a 9. I'd like to thank everybody here for joining me. I'd like to thank you for watching. Tell us below what you think of this story. And also, guess which one of us is a Zygon. Is actually a Zygon in disguise. Tell us below. No, Connor, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it, Connor. We all know it's you. Oh, damn. Anyway. Take care. Look after yourself. Hit that subscribe button. And we'll see you next time.